Good morning. My name is Mark. I'm the youth pastor here at Mount Pleasant. And we've been going through a series here for the last few weeks where we've been looking at Christmas songs and letting them kind of be the lens for how we approach the Christmas story. If you've spent any time with me, especially if you ask my wife, I spend a lot of my time singing, like just throughout my day. I just kind of sing nonstop. I just can't handle silence, I guess. Sometimes it annoys me how much I'm singing. I need to stop. Why am I singing about what I'm doing? And it really doesn't matter what time of year it is. I am probably often, Christmas songs are in that loop of songs that just show up because I love Christmas songs. They're great songs. They show up all the time. I'll be in April and I'll be singing Rudolph, I love Christmas songs. And this time of year is kind of a weird time because everywhere you go, we're hearing songs about Jesus. In the movies we watch, in the shows we're watching, in the stores we shop in, like there's songs about Jesus everywhere we go. We're hearing the story and the things that we claim to believe just everywhere in our lives. And it's kind of a weird thing how Christmas songs kind of become like the white noise kind of behind everything in this season, and we can hear a lot of them, but in a lot of time it's just we kind of have them on in the background. We don't even really think about it, and you don't even need to be a Christian really to appreciate them. I mean, a lot of people listen to Christmas songs that talk about very complicated Christian themes, and it's just like, hey, it just is nice to drink hot chocolate and have this song playing and sit by the fire, and it kind of just fits the mood, and everyone kind of knows these songs. They're kind of baked in to the Christmas experience. If we got rid of all of the songs about Jesus, obviously it would not be the holiday, but even people who didn't believe would probably be like, hey, wait, no, like I have memories attached to that. Like those songs are special. And I love Christmas songs. I love the deep meanings that you can find in them. But one of the big reasons why I love them is because how they're usually written in a way that they place us in the story. It puts us in the perspective of someone that was there. We sing as the shepherds, or as the wise men, or as Mary or Joseph, or even Israel, and we think about what would it have been like to be there, to see those things, to hear those things, to have experienced those things. And the song we're looking at today, O Come, Emmanuel, does that really, really well. This is a song, as we know it, came together in 1851, but the words of the song come from a poem written in the 8th century, like the 700s. Like this is an ancient poem. And the words of it were not just something kind of like tucked away. They were a regular part of most congregations. Every year around Christmas time, they would gather in the 7 days leading up to Christmas Eve, and they would say one of these lines, and they would read it together kind of as a responsive reading as a congregation, and they'd meditate on it. And it's because of that, the way that this song is written is really structured. Like it has a very obvious pattern each time. It introduces an aspect or a different title for Christ, and then it tells us why that matters for how we view him, a different aspect of what his coming to be with us should mean to us. And so they would read these verses, and they would just kind of like sit in that anticipation of Jesus coming, and what that means. And so all that to say, this song is just like jam-packed with theology. I mean, they would spend a whole week just working through this song, and the meaning that's in it is something that we can often miss because, again, it can kind of just be background noise. We're like, oh, pentatonics, awesome, like we'll listen to it, and we miss some of the words and some of the meaning, and so I would love to just use the song as a way, try to look at it with new eyes and see what it's trying to tell us and see how it's placing us into the story and what that means for us. So let's read the first verse here. We have, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. You see, I'm going to be going through all 7 verses of O come, Emmanuel today. You might be saying, what? Wow. Yeah, but I think it's important because each of these verses gives a different title to Christ and a different way to look at him. And so here, in the first one, this whole song is about expressing this deep longing for Jesus to be with us. And that's where we need to start. Before we jump into any of these in depth, this longing for Jesus to be with us. When we sing songs in church, we have to acknowledge that people are coming to the lyrics from a million different places. Some people might read those words or the words of the song, and they say, hey, those lyrics, like, they express the feeling that is in my heart. They express what I would want to say. They express the things that I desire Christ to come and be with me. I desire Jesus to be here. And so as we sing those words, it's like, these are exactly how I feel. I'm in alignment with it. Others, maybe if you're not a Christian, they may not feel that way. And so you again, it's just background noise. And you're like, hey, I just listened to O Come, Emmanuel for like the beat, like I just love that song. And so maybe that's you're like, I don't really care about the words. Others, you might be a Christian, and you might read these words, but they just don't seem to connect. And there's a few reasons for that. Maybe just the language seems a little foreign, like it's a little older, and you're like, I don't really understand what this is all saying, and it's poetic, and I don't know. I'd rather just have something that's a little bit more plain, and so you don't connect in that way. But even so, I think all of us have been in times where we've sung songs in church, and we've not really felt what we're saying. And we can kind of just, go along, sing the song. But this song is really important that you work to place yourself in the same place that they're trying to put you in. Place yourself in the place of Israel, that you are longing for a Messiah, that you're longing for the Messiah to show up. You see, this first verse puts us into the role of Israel, looking forward to the coming Messiah. And throughout the prophet books at the end of the Old Testament, we see over and over again this longing for a Savior, for someone to show up and make things right. And then in the gap in between the Old Testament and the New Testament, there's like this 400 years that passes by. And to us, if you're just reading the Bible, it looks like, oh, so nothing happened in those 400 years? And that's not entirely true. Things were going on, things happened. But I think that it kind of accentuates that they went into this season of silence, of, hey, we've been given these promises. We've been given these prophecies of a Messiah coming to save us, and then nothing, we haven't heard anything. We haven't heard anything. Nothing has come along. And Israel becomes a province of Rome in that time. And they're looking forward to the fulfillment of these prophecies that a Messiah from the line of David will one day rise up and save them from the things that they see in their world happening around them. And again, as we read this, we should not only think of their situation, but we should think of our situation. When we look at the world around us, what needs do we see Jesus needs to meet? Like, what broken things do we see in the world that we say, we need a Messiah? We need someone to make this right. This is not how God intended. And so we need someone to come and fix this. We need Jesus. And so, when we sing this song, we should approach it with that same need. O come, Emmanuel. And the same longing. When we sing each verse, we acknowledge Christ as the fulfillment of all these promises made about him in the Old Testament, all these prophecies. The name given to Jesus in this first verse is Emmanuel, which means God with us, and it comes from Isaiah 7:14. There we go. It says, therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. And this is one of the main verses that you see Emmanuel in the Bible. But the idea behind it is all over the Bible. The idea of God with us is not just like a Christmas idea or like a one-off like, Isaiah talked about. It's like, no, this is a central theme of the biblical story. Like, this is a central theme, maybe the central theme of the biblical story, is this idea of God coming to be with us. It goes all the way back to Genesis in the Garden of Eden, this place where God and humans were together. They were with each other. And God created a place where he lived with us. Humans and God were in a right relationship with one another until humans broke that relationship by sinning. And then God couldn't be with us anymore. He couldn't be with us. A holy God can't be in the presence of sin. And so fast forward, God has chosen a people that he wants to use to accomplish his purposes here on earth. And so he still can't be with them, though. They're still sinful. And so he gives them the plans for a tabernacle, a tent of meeting, a place where they can meet with each other and be with each other. And that the plans he gives them, it has all this imagery of Eden, the place where they were once together with each other. And now they're building kind of like this little Eden, like this place where they can, but they still are sinful. So how does that work? And so God gives them laws that they can go through these processes, and they can, rid themselves of sin so that they can be with God again. And then we fast forward again, and Jesus fulfills the law. He becomes the perfect ransom for our sins and makes a way for us to be with God again. So Jesus is God with us. He's our way to God. He is with us. He's Emmanuel. And through him, we can live in right relationship with God again. In Mark, Jesus claims this identity of being a ransom, right? He says, "For even the Son of the Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." He's ransoming captive Israel. He's setting them free from the bondage of their sin. He's breaking the silence and coming to be with them in their loneliness. He is God with us. And then we get to the refrain. And I learned this week that a refrain is different than a chorus. I always thought they were like the same thing, just kind of like different word for the same thing. But a refrain's different because with the refrain, you're supposed to get louder every time you get back to it. You're supposed to like sing it with more like oomph, like every time, like a little bit more. Because you sing the verse, and then you go back to the refrain. And then you sing the verse, and you go back to the refrain, and you're supposed to return with like added meaning. Like every time, you have more reason to sing the refrain. More reason to sing it. And that's how it is with this one. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to you, O Israel. And as we sing this song, we have this longing for a Messiah, longing for God to be with us. And every time we read one of these verses or sing one of these verses, we're given a new reason why we should rejoice at the fact that God came to be with us. A new reason why we should rejoice. So every time we come back to this refrain, we should have more reason to sing it with everything we have. So let's look at verse 2. Let's jump into it. Verse 2. O come, O wisdom from on high, who ordered all things mightily. To us the path of knowledge show, and teach us in its ways to go. I want to say really quickly, this song, the main structure of it stays the same, but in translations, like words get shifted around. So as we go through these and you're like, hey, I've not heard any of these verses, or like I've heard that one, but like that part of it's different. It's like, yeah, the same idea's there, but from Latin to German and English, it gets all messy. So so it's the same idea. So this is the most accurate to the original, the ones that we're going to be looking at. So teach us in his ways to go. So here Jesus, the name that he's given is wisdom. And this should immediately should bring your mind to the book of Proverbs. When you think of wisdom and you're like, what exactly does the Bible mean by wisdom? Like the book of Proverbs gives us a comprehensive understanding of biblical wisdom. And it's not just knowing right from wrong. Like knowing right from wrong, that's an important part of it, but it's not just knowing right from wrong. Biblical wisdom is knowing God's definition of right and wrong. It's knowing what God says is right, knowing what God says is wrong. It's acknowledging that God created and ordered the world in a specific way. That as creator, he created the world, he ordered it in a specific way. And living in alignment with that order will bring blessing in your life. And Jesus is the embodiment of the wisdom described in Psalms. Proverbs. And if you read through Proverbs and you look at Jesus' life, you can say, this is what it looked like. This is what it looks like to live in alignment with God. Live a life in alignment with him. And not only that, but this verse also touches on the idea that Jesus was involved in establishing that order that God set up. That at the beginning, in creation, that Jesus was there, that the wisdom God needed to create the world, that was Jesus, that Jesus was in that. And so we've been studying Hebrews in youth group like all year. And whenever I read this, it went straight to the first few verses of Hebrews. It says, in the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. He made the universe. So Jesus makes order out of chaos. He is wisdom. In a world full of chaos and disorder, the one that we find ourselves in our lives, and in the world we see outside of us, full of disorder and chaos, we should find joy in the wisdom that Jesus gives us. That Jesus is order, that he is right relationship with God, that he shows us the way to live. And so we should rejoice. We should rejoice. In verse 3 it says, O come, great Lord of might, who to your tribes on Sinai's height in ancient times did give the law in cloud and majesty and awe. So Jesus is the Lord of might. He is the same God. He's the same God we read about in the Old Testament coming to be with us. And he deserves the same reverence. I think that sometimes we kind of split in our minds, like the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament. Like we think, like, oh yeah, like there's those stories, and then like Jesus comes along, and like, yeah, it's the same God, but we don't usually think through it in that way. And it's like the God who gave the law on Sinai's height, who gave the law to Moses, the God that shows up in Exodus and all throughout the Old Testament, that is the God that came to be with us in Jesus. That he is the same God. He gave the law, and he fulfills the law. And what this teaches us is that Jesus is not breaking away from the biblical story. He's not like a completely new thing and breaking away from all these promises and prophecies. Like, no, he's a continuation of it. He's a fulfillment of it. He is the fulfillment of everything that we've seen before. And so because of that, we should rejoice. We should rejoice because he's the same God. And then in verse 4 it says, O come, O branch of Jesse's stem, unto your own and rescue them. From depths of hell your people save and give them victory or the grave. I love that. See, this verse points directly to Isaiah 11, which is probably one of my favorite passages in the prophetic books. It's just a really good one, talking about Jesus is coming and what the world would be like. And so if you'll read with me in Isaiah 11, 1 through 3, it says, A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. The Spirit of wisdom and of understanding. The Spirit of counsel and of might. The Spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. And this again points to the prophecy and promise that the Messiah will come from the line of David. That Jesse, that it's talked about here, that's David's father. And this image of a shoot is powerful. I don't know anything about like agriculture or growing plants or anything, but like as I understand it, like a shoot is not a new plant. It's a new growth from an old root system. Like there's already roots there, and a shoot will pop up. And I love that image for Jesus, because when you see Jesus, it looks like a new thing. It looks like he's doing something new. But he's connected to a root system that's much older. It looks new, but it's not. Its roots go deeper. And it looks like he's doing a new thing, but he's really the fulfillment of old promises. And then at the end there where it says, from the depths of hell your people save and give them victory or the grave. Like what a thing to rejoice over, right? Just like David, this Messiah is one that fights battles and claims victories, but instead of over giants, he claims victory over death, and he gives that victory to us. I mean, you don't have to live in this world long to know that the worst thing in the world is death. The worst thing in the world is death, and Jesus gives us a victory over it. So we rejoice. In this season, we rejoice because he has come to be with us. Verse 5, this is one that I was not familiar with at all before I looked into it, but I thought it was probably my favorite coming away. I love this verse. It kind of uses a title that you wouldn't normally see all the time, Key of David. O come, O Key of David, come. And open wide our heavenly home, make safe for us the heavenward road, and bar the way to death's abode. And again, this verse, it points directly to a passage in Isaiah 22:22. It says, I will place on his shoulder the key to the house of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. Keys, in the time of Isaiah, were a badge of authority. And actually, if someone was given the keys to the kingdom in a government situation, like the king gave you the keys, you would actually tie it to your shoulder, like as a badge. It would kind of hang there, and you could use it to unlock stuff, but it was there. And everyone knew if you had the keys that, oh, this person is important. Only the most important people were given keys, because if you had keys, you had access. And you had access to anywhere. You could go wherever you want. And more importantly, you could grant access, even to the king. Like if you had the keys, you could open the door and lead people to see the king. And so having the key of David, the key of the house of David, means you have authority over the whole kingdom. You can grant access to anything, right? And so when Isaiah brings it up, though, in Isaiah 22, he's actually not talking about Jesus. If you zoom out and read the whole passage, he's talking about a specific person contemporary to his time that was given this. However, he does introduce the idea, and it is what Jesus is talking about in Revelation 3. He says, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia, write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. And so Jesus, he has the keys. What he opens, no one can shut. What he shuts, no one can open. And while Isaiah wasn't talking about Jesus in chapter 22, after I was looking into all this, and there's a few scholars that believe this, and I think they're right, a passage you probably recognize from Isaiah, I think, is referring to this. It says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. He has the government on his shoulders, the authority of the kingdom on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. See, Jesus holds the keys. He holds the keys. Now, he has authority to grant access, to open doors, but also to close them. And he has opened the door for us to be with God. And he's closed the door to death. And that whole idea, I think, just gives completely different meaning to when Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. He has the keys. He opens the door. And so because of that, we should rejoice, because Jesus has the keys to grant us access. We rejoice. And so in verse 6, it says, O come, O bright and morning star, and bring us comfort from afar. Dispel the shadows of the night and turn our darkness into light. In this passage, I kept the original language here, like I said, because it kind of matches up with Scripture more, but you would probably recognize this verse more as, O come thou dayspring, come and cheer. That's usually the version that we read. But in the original language, it was translated bright and morning star, same sort of idea. But Jesus is the dayspring. He's the bright and morning star. Jesus himself, he claims this name in Revelation 22. He says, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. This chapter in Revelation 22, this is the chapter that talks about about Eden being restored. And in New Eden, there will be no night, no sorrow, because God will be with us. And he will be our source of light. He will be with us, and he will be our light. Something this song does, I think, really well, you'll notice, I feel like I just kept, as I was reading and studying this, I kept flipping between Isaiah and Revelation. Like Isaiah, Revelation, it was like all these references between them. And what it does is it takes the first coming of Jesus and Christmas and his future second coming throughout the song, and it kind of talks about them in tandem. Like, we're singing about them like we're looking at Christmas, but really we're talking also about in the future when Jesus is going to come again. And when we get to fully be with him again in this new Eden, in this place where we're able to be with God. And so because of that, we rejoice because Jesus came to be with us once. And he will one day be with us again. Finally, the last verse says, O come, O King of nations, bind in one the hearts of all mankind. Bid all our sad divisions cease, and be yourself our King of peace. In the Psalms, you'll come across a type of psalm called a royal psalm. They're all over the place. And in those, you'll get this picture of this perfect king that's described. A king that does what none of the kings of Israel were able to do. If you read through the history of Israel, the kings just kind of fail over and over again to live up to the standard that would be God wanting to work with them. And then they turn away from him and they lead Israel astray. And so you read these psalms about this king, and as people would read them back then, they would say, like, well, who is this talking about? Because none of our kings are this good. Like, none of our kings are fulfilling this what's being said here. And so they started saying, oh, they're talking about the Messiah. This is the king that's going to come from David. This is the future king from the line of David, the Messiah. And so these psalms, these royal psalms, are all about Jesus. And in Psalm 2, it says, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. That's Jerusalem. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. See, Jesus is the king of all, and he's the only one who can bind us together. Unity, this idea of unity, was one of Jesus' greatest concerns for his followers. In one of his last few moments was with his disciples, he prayed this prayer all about unity. And I want to read it because I feel like it just ties together so much of what we have talked about this morning. Jesus says, my prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. That's us. We're the ones who believe in their message, right? So Jesus is praying for us here. I think that's so cool. And it says, Father, just as you are in me and I'm in you, may they also be in us, that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I and them and you and me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory and the glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them and will continue to make you known, in order that the love you have for me may be in them, and that I myself may be in them. Jesus' desire is to be with us, God with us. And that should lead us to strive for unity, for reconciliation with others, to bid our sad divisions cease. See, God coming to be with us should shock us. I mean, why would God humble himself, become human, and die for us to be with him when we were the ones who sinned? We were the ones who rebelled. Why would a perfect God come and suffer so that he could be with us? I mean, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And more than anything, that should lead us to rejoice. That while we were far away, turned to the other direction, God chose to be with us. And what does that mean for how we treat those we feel far from? Those who have wronged us or offend us. Those who we have decided are beneath us in some way. I mean, what sad divisions have we created or have allowed to take root in our lives? And as we head into the next several weeks of gatherings, family gatherings and work gatherings and the like, where you're going to be around people that maybe you wouldn't normally be around for longer times than you'd normally be around them, think about that. What can I do to be agent of peace, someone who's reconciling, someone who's reaching out to be with those who maybe have been cast off? What would that look like? What can we do to draw close to those who are far away? See, Jesus came to heal and to restore and to unite across nations and families and hearts. Christ has come, and Christ will come again. And just like Israel waited in longing for the Messiah to come the first time, we now wait with that same longing for his return. And as we wait, we don't wait without hope because we know what his coming means. We sing this refrain over and over, and with every verse, we are reminded why we rejoice. We rejoice because Jesus came to be with us. We rejoice because he brings wisdom and order to a chaotic world. Because Jesus fulfills the promises of old. We rejoice because he gives us victory over sin. He opens the doors to the Father, and he shuts the door to death. We rejoice because Jesus is our light and our hope and our peace. And so today, in a few minutes, as we sing this song, we sing through some of these verses, let it stir in you a deep longing for Jesus. Come, Lord Jesus. And let it call us to rejoice. It's not a longing that's not going to be left unmet. Like, we get to rejoice because Jesus is coming. And we know what that means. Because no matter where we find ourselves, the promise of Christmas is that Jesus has come to be with us. He is with us in our sorrow, in our joy, in our doubts, and in our waiting. So church, rejoice, rejoice. Emmanuel shall come to you. Let's pray.